Hello, we're going to get started now. Super excited to have Mujeres Mutantes here with us today. I'm going to hand it over to them. Thank you all for being here.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. My name is Celeste Sagaro.
My name is Liliana Trevedia.
So today we will be doing, we'll be introducing you to the Ofrenda we have created, and we will be doing a tissue flower workshop. If you have tissue flower and pipe cleaners, you can make these flowers at home with your family and make it for your Ofrenda. We have some samples here already. Now you've probably seen a lot of these, and they're very easy to make and very fun to make with your kids and for family members and for your Ofrenda. And again, I want to thank you, Mujeres Mutantes, our collective that has been working in different communities on the south side of Chicago. I've worked mostly in Pilsen, and now living in McKinley Park, and working there. Well, have been living in McKinley Park for the past 15 years, and so starting more projects there. But we are artists in residence at Hyde Park Art Center. Thank you, Hyde Park Art Center, for having us. Thank you, Sarah, for hosting. So a little bit about what we do is we've curated shows. We have done community events, and we like to be inclusive of family, because we feel like family and community is very important. And as far as like art shows, a lot of the times we saw, as far as when I was growing up, I saw it was more like institutions or museums, or it felt like a lot of art wasn't accessible to youth and community members like myself. So one of our goals as a collective, and my personal goals, was to bring arts to the community, and also working in the community and working for a nonprofit. We see how important it is for Chicagoans, and how it heals a lot of our communities via murals, your art shows, and your being inclusive towards different people and different aspects of their artistic life, or just people that want to be creative in general. So I'm going to pass it on to Lily so she can tell you about herself.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. So yeah, I was invited as a guest artist. A little bit about me: born and raised in Pilsen. I'm a Southside based artist, organizer, educator. Very honored to be a part of Mujeres Mutantes. And now we'll go into a little bit about what making an altar is, how to make one, and why we decided to honor the people we wanted to honor.
Well, you can find several resources online to talk about what an ofrenda is. And I found one that's great, and that I'll share with you some of the aspects of it. And this one is called Bringing Home the Dead by Sandy Coronita and Molly Zisk. They're from the Register. So this is here: Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, is the Mexican celebration when families gather to honor the memory of deceased loved ones. Spirits are guided home to enjoy offerings left for them on meticulously crafted altars. Its roots are a fusion of traditions found in Europe and Mesoamerica, particularly the ancient Aztec Empire. Despite its macabre motifs, death was considered new life by the Aztecs, along with the Day of the Dead spirits. The popularity of this colorful and joyful holiday has risen exponentially in the U.S. and other Mexican diasporas. So for myself, growing up in Chicago, I didn't originally start doing ofrendas. Actually, ofrendas started something later on in life, when I started working at Pros Art Studio, and they had a Day of the Dead celebration. They had the first Day of the Dead celebration in Pilsen that I experienced, and they had procession, the Muertos de la Risa procession every year. So when I started, I was like, oh, this is part of my culture, and I started to experience it. I think growing up as a first generation Mexican, when we come here, a lot of the times it's like their parents want us just to assimilate, and we talk about that often in our communities. And but reconnecting to our roots and reconnecting to this tradition was very important and life changing for me. As first generation Mexican, it's now something that I'm sharing with my family and my children, and also doing this project together with my friends and my colleague has also been like very, I feel like, empowering and healing in a lot of different ways. So I think a lot of the times the ofrendas, they offer this other way to grieve and to express what we feel spiritually, like on our with our culture, and not fusing it like in the US. And it's gained a lot of popularity, but it's still a culture, and not just it's part of the culture, and not just something that's trendy for us, because the way we express how we feel, like the passion, the love, and we also honor the people that have passed on and remember them in different ways. So that's one of the things that they talk about also, is honoring them, and acknowledging it, and not to be afraid of it. There's different elements in the ofrenda, which I will talk about right now. There are 4 main elements of nature, which is fire, wind, water, earth. Fire is represented by the candles that we light at the altar. The wind is represented by when we feel the spirits come back. We use the papel picado to let us know when the spirits have come, because the wind obviously moves the papel picado. The earth is symbolized by the crops of the earth, so the food that we eat and we share with our loved ones. And today is actually November 1st, which is like the day that we honor the children, the youth, that have passed on. So oftentimes people put their favorite toys, or the children's favorite toys, and things that they like to play with. We have the sugar skulls, which everybody's very familiar with. They're sugar skulls and decorated, and oftentimes they have the names placed on the sugar skulls. We have photographs of our loved ones. We have a Christian iconography. Oftentimes we have the Virgin Mary and the Holy Cross, because of the European roots in Mexico. We also burn copal incense, which you can't smell it, but it's burning right now. It smells really beautiful, very earthy. And then we have the flowers of dead, which is cempasúchil. The cempasúchil, or marigolds, have a strong scent. And actually, when Lily was cutting up the cempasúchil and placing it on an altar, we were talking about how beautiful it smelled even through our masks. It's just this very strong, odor that really has not just a symbolic meaning as far as the culture. The cempasúchil means 20, which means 20 leaves, which is one of the things that the indigenous Mexicans, I don't want to say Aztec, because that's not what they call themselves. They call themselves Mexica. But a lot of them are known as Aztec. The petals are used to make pathway leading toward the altar that is also heavily adorned with a flower. Loved ones also use cempasúchil to decorate the graves of their dearly departed. And of course, we have the bread of the dead, the pan de muerto. It's a sweet bread decorated with bones running across the top, and a single teardrop atop the center of the bun, representing sorrow. So these are different elements of the altar. Of course, it has its Mesoamerican roots. Day of the Dead's pre-Columbian most roots have involved many Mesoamerican civilizations such as Aztecs, Toltecas, Tlaxcaltec, Chichimec, and Tepaneca. I don't know if I pronounced it right. They each commemorate the dead specific times based on the age of the person who passed and the manner in which the person died. In these cultures, to be sacrificed was to be honored with feeding the gods, to enter into communion with them. Aztecs or Mexica practiced ritual human sacrifices, skull racks called Sopansali, display rows of human skulls. It is no surprise that these indigenous people included skull iconography as an element of the dead. Spanish colonists viewed the celebration of death as dangerous precursor of civil disorder. However, unsuccessfully integrated the Christian All Saints Days and the All Souls Days. This is why crosses and maps of the Virgin Mary are part of today's celebration. This is just a little bit of the culture, and I know it's a lot, almost like a lecture. But I will now pass it on to Lily so she can talk about the altar and some of the elements that we incorporate in the altar.
Yeah, so this is essentially an altar for Chicago. And when we were brainstorming of like what elements we wanted to include, typically like an altar is made for your ancestors, typically like directly in your lineage, like your family, and there's a lot that's happened in Chicago, and it was just like, how many different things do we want to incorporate? But for me, it was like, who do I want to honor? Who do we want to honor? Who is forgotten? And so this altar is dedicated to those that have been killed by the Chicago police. And so on some of the candles, kind of hard to see from afar, but we have their names written. We have Ricky Boyd, Juan McDonald, Miguel Vega, and I just felt like it was really important to honor them because they should still be here, right? And like, just because the protests have stopped, or at least like the media coverage of them has stopped, doesn't mean that they're forgotten. You know, we're told day in and day out that like our lives don't matter, that we don't exist, from policies and divestment. So I just like really wanted to bring them here with us after everything that's gone on this summer in the uprising, and make sure that they felt that we love them and we honor them and that we're fighting for them still. It's a little bit of what we have here.
Hi, does anyone have any questions or thoughts on the piece, the altar, the ofrenda? we get started on the flowers.
Is there a significance in the color?
I think that the teal that we used, and even organically, some of these pieces that came together, there is a significance. We like to have it brightly colored and to attract the souls back to the space, the altar, the ofrenda. Not just with the scent of the cempasúchil, the marigolds, but with the color, having colorful, flowers like the tissue paper flowers, and to make it kind of more something not dark and dismal, but beautiful and bright and full of life.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think here in the United States, death is seen more as like a morbid and really sad event. And while death can be heavy, in this tradition, it's a way of like processing and healing, and honoring them when like they are with us, And so like, I think the color element really helps change that energy. Having it blue, green, orange, like really just like bright colors that help calm and like just shift the energy, like remembering like this isn't a time to be sad, this is a time to be happy. And so that's why typically like for Dia de los Muertos you'll see a lot of like really really bright colors versus just like black.
All right, we're not, I think with the tradition, a lot of times I think we're not mourning the death, we're celebrating the life of the people, that were here and that contributed to our culture and our society as a whole. And, we feel like every life is important. And no matter what you feel like is their significance, like to somebody, that person meant something, And so we honor all of the lives that have been on this earthly plane and have transitioned. And I think that that is not like that is just very earth, like kind of mother root way of thinking of that, everything that on this planet has a purpose and has a meaning, and all of it, even if it's been taken early, we all affect each other in different ways.
So the question is, how long do people keep them up, and is there a specific time frame? Well, it starts today actually, and it lasts a few days. So typically, like the altars are up for the duration. But I have a permanent altar in my home that I keep up all year round, and so when this time comes, Dia de los Muertos, I just add food, water. I just add like more of the traditional elements. But I do keep it up all year round, and I know that's different for different people.
I think, like in Mexico, for example, when someone passes, when upon their death, they resurrect an altar, and in the year that their death has happened, like in the year, the tradition is that after the year has passed and their death, they take down the altar, and that is a whole other mourning process. So I think here, I feel like for myself, we started early, like in the beginning of October, to put our ofrenda up, just to have different elements, like, and to be inclusive of my children and our family, and it's always like we see things that we want to add to it that remind us of our loved ones, or that how we want to honor them. Like we might get a new picture, or we might hear a story. So I think we've been starting early in October here, but most of the time, like Lily said, it starts like you can put your friend up November 1st or right after Halloween, and then it's up for what, 3 days? About 3 days from November 1st to November 3rd or 4th. So today is the day that November 1st is the day that we honor the children and the youth, and then November 2nd is when we honor everybody else, adults and our elder ancestors.
In Chicago, actually, like carries this tradition. It's like really present in a lot of different communities, like Back in the Yards, Pilsen, Little Village. Like in Little Village, you'll see like the Ark has marigolds. The National Mexican Museum of Art, they have a large gathering, and it's very much a community event. You'll see different churches have, they'll allow community members to bring photos of their loved ones and honor them there. So, and then there's also like processions and stuff like that happen, but this year that's not taking place, unfortunately. But there's been a lot of different virtual activities happening to still keep that alive.
When I experienced Day of the Dead in Mexico, well, the year anniversary, it was really a celebration. Like I remember being in the pueblo and walking all the way to the panteon or the cemetery. And once there was food, there was libations, and everyone was sharing and talking and reminiscing about the person who at the time was my uncle, who had passed away, and sharing stories about him, and also visiting anybody who was at the cemetery, at the panteon, who people wanted to remember, So it does become more like it is really a celebration. I know we say that a lot, but we are honoring that person and talking about their stories and remembering in not in a mournful way, but a joyful way. And I was like, sometimes it's like, I didn't know that about this person. And when they're sharing these stories, and you laugh and it's a happy time. It's not a sad time, because like we feel like that, that person brought joy to our lives and brought stories to our lives, and their spirit is still with us. So I think a lot of that, I feel like when I've experienced celebrations, and like I know we are in a pandemic and it's very different, and it's also very difficult too, because for us as a culture and a community, that's something that we share with each other and also experience with each other, and honor with each other. And to be separated this way is very hard. But still, we're still trying to find ways to share our traditions and to celebrate these lives that have passed on. And I think that we're thankful that you're here and sharing with us and wanting to learn more about, what it means. And like, no, you can also participate and create your own altars and honor your loved ones and share their stories in a way that is not sad, but happy, and thankful that they have been part of your life.
So we got another question. Is it considered a cultural appropriation to make an ofrenda? You do not come from the cultural roots of that tradition. That's a great question. For me personally, I wouldn't recommend making an ofrenda like if you do not come from that culture, but I think like each culture has different ways of honoring their loved ones. So yes, it is. But I do think that each culture has their own version of honoring their loved ones, so I would stick to that. Just because like it is very spiritual, and like you shouldn't be like bringing in other people's ancestors, it's a very intense experience when these spirits are here with us, and like just like be very, very cautious. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend it, and it would be considered cultural appropriation. How do you feel about that?
I think that a lot of times that we are sharing our culture with people that are I feel like that they need it also for healing, and I think that you can do it in your own way, similar to what Lily's saying. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same because everyone's roots are different. But I think that one of the things that I noticed when they started getting bigger in Pilsen in Chicago is that I saw a lot of people that were not from the culture that really needed it and really what were like had this thirst for that connection. And I feel like they've lost a lot of their maybe they've assimilated so much that they've lost a lot of their roots, their ethnic roots. And maybe they need to reconnect with that, you know, with those ethnic roots that they had prior to you know, assimilating to US American culture. I don't know if that's like very I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah. I just also wanted to add on, like, I think that there's ways that people can participate respectfully without, like, appropriating culture. Like, they can definitely, like, everyone can definitely, like, you know, make some flowers in processions. People would typically carry flowers and candles. And I think that's okay. But I think as far as, like, building an altar and calling in their ancestors, I definitely think, like, you should do what your culture follows. Just so everything is okay. Yeah, thank you for asking that.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, let's get into.
Okay, we have about, it's 1:36, so we have about, you know, some time left to start creating these tissue paper flowers. So it's okay if you don't have tissue paper at home. Maybe you have some just regular paper, whatever you can find, and pipe cleaners. So you can find tissue paper, you know, I'm sure you use it for gifts. You can recycle too as well. And we use tissue paper and pipe cleaners, and they don't have to be perfectly cut. And oftentimes, I roughly cut them to about the size of a 5x7 piece of paper. And you can do different colors, like Lily was saying. We have, you know, and sometimes this is yellow, and red, purple, and then you can mix up colors as well. I will be doing some purple and mint colored ones right now, and I also have this like pretty midnight blue. And if you see some of the altars like at any of the spaces, you know, if you have the, you know, venture out, is very simple. Cempasúchil means 20, so it means 20 leaves or 20 petals. And but oftentimes, like, I've stuck to 20 pieces, and but I find that you can do, you know, 8 or 9 pieces of tissue paper flower. This is already cut. It comes in different sizes. So I'm going to start by getting the tissue paper. I'm going to cut this one with you. I fold it in half. I cut the tissue paper. Sorry about cutting it perfectly. I'll cut it in half again. Hold it. And it's not perfect, and that's okay. Because you won't even notice once I make the flower that it's not. Then again, about five by 7 piece of tissue paper. I like tissue paper. I'm gonna hold it out. About 9 feet. You can do more. Or you can do 10. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Take the paper, smooth it out. Now I'm gonna accordion style fold it. You've all done this. Grammar school, we made those little fans, you know, when we were hot. Made those little fans out of paper. Accordion style fold it. And it's okay if you're like a little behind, because I will do it again with different colors. Now, this is very, for me, very therapeutic. Holding it, I'm getting a pipe cleaner, a Garo pipe cleaner. I'm gonna twist it. Twist it around. Again, my hands are probably moving really fast because I've done this a lot. I'm gonna get the what's the trick, right? Cut off the end, down even, and then even. Then I get these pretty cool little confetti you can use for my altar as well, which we did use. Let's spread out my little flower. Then I'm gonna start pulling up the paper to the middle of my little crystal. Of the flower. Looks kind of like, I always think it looks like some kind of strange exotic flower at this point. Then just pull the pieces up carefully towards the middle. And the pieces don't have to be perfectly, you know, perfect. It always ends up looking nice when you don't really try to be too symmetrical. Now we'll do this again. And I'm doing it kind of fast now. But after a while, this becomes like second nature to do this. You can do it with your eyes closed while watching a movie. At first, you just get used to it. And even the movement, it's very, for me, it's very therapeutic. Sometimes I'll like to do more colors, different colors, or if I have a color palette, specific ones.
you remember the first time you made an altar or
The first time that it was for the day for Pros Art Studio, and I was working at Pros Arts, and they wanted a mobile ofrenda. We were making mobile ofrendas for shopping carts, and it was the first time that I actually took the time to make the flowers. I had always seen them, and I don't know. I remember somehow somebody had like a handout on how to make them, and I did it, and then I just like after that, I always did them after that. But it was for Progress. It was Progress Studios. It was a nonprofit in Pilsen. Actually, where me and Liliana met.
Yeah, I was like, tell me something like that.
She was one of my youth apprentices and then interns for the Year Hip Hop Festival. And now, as a grown up, we've been together for 10 years and are like now creating and making art together and participating in each other's, you know. Really want to say more, but let me see. So that is
Coming along, coming along.
coming along.
Yeah,
Here you go.
the first time I made an altar was really young. My mom's good friend was a funeral director, and so I think I was like 7 years old is my earliest memory. And we were making these flowers for days, like that was it. But it was a really beautiful experience because we had created a space for people to heal and like mourn in a way that wasn't always sad. And so I was grateful to like be taught that death doesn't have to be, something sad, and like it abolished a lot of different emotions. Like through this tradition, it has taught me to feel like that it's okay to feel joy when you lose people, and like in honoring them and remembering the good times, So like yeah, I was like 7, 8 years old when I first got started, and I have made an altar every year since. And like I said, not a husband in my home. So.
I think for me, like the most important part is being able to like my children being taught about it, and then me teaching my children, and like creating these like new traditions here that I didn't experience, and feeling connected to my culture. I think we always say, well, I often as first generation, we always hear this saying like, oh, we're not from here nor there, and it often feels like that. But I feel like when we're here and start making new traditions and also teaching it differently than my elders taught it, like for me there's less religion involved and more spiritual, a spiritual aspect to it. And I know for some, more religious for them. But I feel like it's whatever your family is teaching the young ones, it's like it's really up to you, like okay. I remember when I was growing up, my father was he wasn't anti-religion, but he was just like find your own way, find your own path. And I feel like that's what I've been doing my whole life, is just always finding my own way, my own path, and what feels right to me, and what I feel connected with. And I feel like I think it's important because we can give that power to the young people, to find a way to move us in the new direction that we need. Often we think that our ways, we might be set on our ways, and sometimes we do need to change and to be pushed into different states, in different traditions. And I feel like I'm learning a lot from Lily, She says she learned from me, but I feel like I'm learning more from her. I'm happy to be in the space and to, talking about these things and creating together. When we started working on this altar, it just started, I was like, wow, it's just coming together, and it's just a very organic and interesting way that it felt very good, doing it. And I would say, well, the magic is happening, and that's exactly what it is to me, it's this type of magic.
We only have a few minutes left, unfortunately, but I did want to also just ground us again on why we're doing this, and what we're doing it for. Also for those who have been horrified by this. And I have been struggling a lot with PTSD and experiencing a lot of police brutality, as a lot of us have this summer. And so at the same time, I've also think that we've made a lot of progress as a city, or at least I have a little bit of hope, And so I wanted to bring them here so that they can feel that they are loved and that they are supported and that we're building and we're continuing to fight for them. And so, yeah, I don't know if you can't really see the words in the back, but it's just, we love you. And so this is a part of my healing process, and I think a lot of us in the city really just are, still. I don't think maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I'm still struggling a lot from what I've experienced, and so this is a way that this has been a part of my healing process, and so I hope that you guys feel that and can honor them as well. So thank you for joining us. I hope you guys.
Thank you.
If there's any last minute questions, feel free to ask. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I think it's time for us to start listening to our young people and to follow their lead, because they're the ones that are inheriting this planet, this earth, this society. And I think that we've done what we can, and it's their turn, and that their voices are important and need to be heard at this time. We need to follow their lead, because this is their future. And from what they've been saying, it's not what we want or what we think is good for them, but what they need. They're telling us what they need for themselves. And there's so many young people, and including Liliana, expressing this, and we need to listen to them, and we need to honor them, because they are changing the world, and and I feel like it's time we live in the world that they see, they envision. Thank you all for joining us. We have 8 minutes left.
I just wanted to thank you both. You did such a lovely presentation. I felt bad that I was the only participant, and it looked like I wasn't participating, but I was. It was beautiful, the flowers that you made. I'm a little bit in Zoom fatigue these days, so I was just being the fly on the wall kind of observer while I knitted. So
awesome.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the second part of this meeting. Okay. I'm glad I joined in time for your presentation. I've always enjoyed this festival. There was the time when I used to make it a point to take our daughter and go to Pilsen, to the Museum of Mexican Fine Art.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
That was my introduction to the Dias de la Muertos. I can't say it right.
Of course, yeah. It's a very, the event that the museum puts on is very communal and it's very beautiful. So I'm glad that you've been able to attend.
Yes, yes. And of course, haven't for some years now, but it brings back memories. Thank you both.
Thank
for
you.
Doing
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you all for joining us today for our Virtual Center Sundays. We have a really great activity that's coming up. We're going to give it just 5 more minutes to see if any other folks join, but please learn more about our Center Sundays and our upcoming November events here. And we're really excited to begin speaking with you all today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. From my sequences, iterations, and permutations class. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
So thanks so much for coming. Glad you're here.
Mhm.
Glad to be here.
Hey, how's it going?
I
Hey.
yes, I'm here too. Hello.
Hey.
Hey. Hi, Susan Orenko. Haven't seen you for a while.
Hi, Karen.
How have you been doing during this period?
I'm fine.
That's good.
Hi, Denise. Oh, she's not on there.
Hi, Susan. Hi, Kristin.
Hey, how you guys? Thank you so much for coming. Glad to see you all.
Susan, did I see that you were judging some competition recently? Tight.
Oh, no, it's a cough. I'm fine. I have mold allergies and the wind is just, no, I'm not judging anything. We have a new venture, to show art.
Can you tell us about it?
You can find it on Facebook. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to watch Kristin.
Well, so am I.
Mm.
So should we look your name up on Facebook?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all again so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be presenting our Virtual Center Sunday. We do it every first Sunday of the month. We have art making activities, artist talks, panel conversations, amongst all things our Hyde Park Arts Center packaged into a special dose for you for the month ahead. Thank you so much for coming. We just had our Mujeres, Mutantes art making activity where we talked about the history of Ofrendas and Day of the Dead. And we also did an art making activity where we were able to create our own paper mache flowers. And here we have Kristin on a Heath cast who has a wonderful exhibition up at the Hyde Park Arts Center right now as a part of our Bridge program in our MMR room, and some lovely work on toxic femininity, which she will be talking about today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kristin.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for introducing me, Sierra. Hopefully I can share my screen with you all. My work, Marks on Our Bodies, Things That Constrain Us, is part of the Unmuted exhibition at Hyde Park Arts Center. So welcome to my studio today. You could probably see that I'm in the midst of several projects behind me. Under normal circumstances, I'd be handing you a perfect cup of Armenian coffee right now and offering to read your cup afterwards. But since we're together on Zoom, I guess that's gonna have to wait till next time. And I hope we'll visit together again. So I wanted to tell you a bit about myself, my artistic practice, and the work that's in Unmuted. I'm an artist working in photography, video, writing, sculpture, and other media. In addition to my arts education, my career as a lawyer has given me a unique perspective on social issues and the injustices that so many people and communities face every day. With the election coming up in just 2 days, I know I don't need to remind you, activism has been on everyone's mind. As an artist, I'm committed to art as activism, and that comes from being both a person of mixed ethnicity and descendant of genocide survivors. Okay, I'm hopefully gonna share my screen with you right now. So just bear with me because I'm gonna show you work from the project and talk a little bit about how it was made. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, so here we go. Share. Sorry, bear with me. It's always some little. Okay, can everybody see that? Hopefully, yes. Let me know if for some reason you can't. So this sequence is a sequence of that work in progress, and with my working notes actually printed on the photographs I was working on. So to tell you a little bit about my artistic practice, my art is about the very personal spaces where our lives interact with the lives of others and the underlying questions of social justice and human rights. And the work in Marks on Our Bodies, Things That Constrain Us, gets very personal. This work is part of a larger project about socially enforced gender roles and their consequences called My Toxic Femininity. Toxic masculinity is an idea that I'm sure you've heard discussion about, but as a woman, I wanted to examine gender issues that I could have more agency over and shift the narrative about femininity. The women in my family were strong, and some of them survived truly horrific things during the Armenian genocide. Yet, I often saw them chafe at the gender roles society imposed on them. And as women of Middle Eastern descent, I saw them struggle to conform to Eurocentric beauty standards that shaped our perceptions of ourselves. This series of photographs addresses some of the outward aspects of femininity, exploring my experiences and those of other women as society frequently attempts to control us through our bodies. Just think about the politics of recent Supreme Court appointments. Well, I've been thinking about this project for a long time, and the social isolation of the pandemic gave me an opportunity to think in new ways about how women conform their appearances to certain standards of femininity. How many of us have spent countless working hours since last March in pajamas, without makeup, and without many of the things that once we might not even have considered going without. I began to consider how many Zoom calls I'd been on, observing only one other woman having performed her usual beauty regimen. And yet we were all still okay. And that's when I started cataloging all the products, makeup, clothes, shoes, and other accoutrements of femininity, and what they cost in dollars, and in the time used in beauty routines, and the emotional cost of anxiety about our appearances. I think Jasper is here, and so actually working from a prompt about displaying sequencing objects in space, this diptych, Things That Constrain Us, took shape. It displays an installation of common beauty products and items of clothing imbued with unspoken meaning about what is feminine, hung on a clothesline, historically a symbol of the domesticity to which women were consigned. With the 2016 election behind us and the current election looming, many women have felt anger and frustration at the continuing misogyny that affects us. So I started on this work, looking to a diverse group of women as models, different ages, ethnicities, orientations, looking for aspects of ourselves in them all. And I'm going to go through the whole series now for you. And I'm also going to read the text because I don't know if you'll be able to read it on your screen the ways you could do at the exhibit. So this is Marks on Our Bodies. The Impossible Mandate of Femininity, #1. Accepting ourselves. We tug, pull, bleach, coax, cut, curl, heat, and otherwise obsess our hair into the styles we hope will conform to our chosen standards of beauty, instead of accepting our hair, let alone ourselves as we are. We glance seductively. We glance seductively from under eyelashes curled, dyed, extended to enhance our allure, pinching and pulling at our skin in our endless quest to comply with the mandate of femininity. Do not sit quietly. No one can work with the exaggerated fingernails we sometimes affect. Even a coat of polish is difficult to maintain on hands that are not idle, on hands that create and do not sit quietly in the place of silence and stillness where women have often been expected to abide. Compressed into submission. Waist pinched tight, belly, thighs, and butt are compressed into submission so we can perform the socially acceptable body types of women. The Impossible Mandate of Femininity, #2. Constricting our very breath. The feminine standard of small waist and flat stomach has encouraged women to encase their bodies in the armor of constraint, historically to the point of constricting our very breath. A public indecency. The ache in her shoulders, underwire pressing into the delicate flesh over her ribs, we cage our breasts out of social convention as if they are obscene, a public indecency, sexualized to make them more appealing. Not feminine. Body hair is not feminine, so we remove it or keep it in response to our need to conform to the female gender stereotype we identify with. We scrape off our hair with razors, burn it off with chemicals, pull it up at the roots with hot wax or tiny threads, leaving our skin red and angry in the aftermath. Hobbled by the constraints of femininity. After a day in heels, our feet are red and sore, our health and comfort suppressed by our need to project sexual power and femininity. After a lifetime, our feet may be deformed, hobbled by the constraints of femininity. The Impossible Mandate of Femininity, #3. Things that constrain us. I wanted to share with you a bit about what went into making this series of photographs. My work is project-based, and the ideas the project explores suggest the media I choose to express those ideas. Thinking about fashion and beauty, photography seemed the obvious medium to work in. I had done some fashion photography work, and so I was able to return to that for more traditionally glamorous portraits. The blue portraits that you saw are part of a shorter series called The Impossible Mandate of Femininity. Here's the original fashion photo that The Impossible Mandate of Femininity #2 is based on. First, I cropped and desaturated the photo. Then I rephotographed in very soft focus. And finally, with a blue filter, distorting the look of fashion photography as fashion often distorts real women's faces and bodies. The black and white portraits investigate the way that performative beauty standards can literally mark and constrain us, while marking our psyches and constraining our resources. I started with some fairly standard fashion shots, referencing the items in the initial diptych sequence. Here's the original fashion photo of accepting ourselves. I cropped and rephotographed the originals in black and white. Then I drew the marks that these objects make in red and rephotographed them, well, in this case, also in black, the rollers. Next, I added text that considers what women will do to conform to societal standards of feminine beauty to be the right kind of woman. And after printing those iterations, I hung the photos from the same clothesline in an installation with the physical objects, which I photographed to complete the works. The sharply focused portrait of a woman's body after a day wearing an underwear or bra, clothing that's marketed as a way to augment feminine allure and sexiness, begins the series with the red marks under her breasts confronting us. So I had seldom thought about those marks, but I just knew that I couldn't wait to get that thing off my body at the end of the day. But observing the marks, that made me question whether I was making choices out of my own desire or a need to conform to be that right kind of woman. And so I chose to have this woman confront viewers from the start. The softly focused portrait that ends the series has the woman turn her back on us, fading away as the marks finally do. I made this portrait to end the series, hoping that with more agency over our own lives, the restrictions that gender conformity places on us will increasingly fade as women turn their backs on limiting ideas of what is feminine. The My Toxic Femininity project is far from finished, and the next series in the project addresses issues of working women and women's unpaid labor in society. Socially enforced gender roles have a toxic effect on women in American culture. Women are pressured to accept the role of primary or sole caregivers in our society, whether in the personal, domestic, or public professional spheres. In our capitalist economy, the model of woman as caregiver is an important aspect of toxic femininity. Women are not compensated for many aspects of their labor that benefit society. This unpaid labor is not included in economic measures such as GNP. The devaluation of women as evidenced by the pay, wealth, and power gaps that affect them causes a general acceptance of the correctness of society's history of taking women's labor without compensation. But many of us have felt overwhelmed by the expectations placed on us. And so to this end, this is a short video called Working Mother Part 1, exploring some of the extra demands society places on women with children.
I'm in this meeting now.
You'll be able to see Working Mother Part 2 as it makes its way to my website. But whether you have children or not, you may recognize the additional expectations of women to be caregivers, volunteers, and domestic laborers, providing society with a host of unrecognized services. Now I'm going to try to share that video with you, and hopefully that works out just fine. So let me get this stuff off. Sorry about that. There we go. And
You might have to go to stop share and then put on the video and then go back to share.
is it not sharing for you?
No, I mean, right now it's frozen, but when you're showing a different application, sometimes you have to stop share in order to go to it.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you,
Oh.
Kara.
Let me go back to stop sharing. Thanks for telling me. Stop share. Okay, there we are back. Now I'm going to share the screen again. So hang on a second. Okay, desktop. Yep. We'll pull this up. Tell me if you don't see this, but it says I'm screen sharing. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, we can see it.
So if you didn't get a chance to see Unmuted, there's a virtual tour of the show on my website. I'm going to see if I can put a link in the chat. I don't know if I can, but through the Bridge program at Hyde Park Arts Center, I had the opportunity to work with a group of artists whose work addresses some of the most important issues of our times in very different ways, which makes Unmuted full of beautiful and thought-provoking works. Through the center's programs, I was able to make significant work on several projects, and I'm grateful for the resources available for artists here. I hope you'll watch artist Cindy Lys's interactive event, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, which is coming up next. Thank you so much for sharing your Sunday with me and letting me share my work with you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you so much, Kristin. That was really wonderful to learn more about your work and about the project that's been ongoing as well. Does anyone have any questions for Kristin? So we'll have a bit of time left if you'd like to discuss anything.
That's the recording of the virtual tour of the exhibit, so I just put it in there. Anyway, thanks everybody.
I have a question. What are you working on next? That was such powerful, amazing work, Kristin. Oh my God.
Thanks, Jasper. And thank you, because I couldn't have gotten over my block to get started on that without you. So thank you so much. I am going back to working on some of the project that you already saw, Ephemeral Shadows, about the turmoil in the wider world caused by, human created climate effects causing turmoil within us. So that's what I've been back to working on yeah, and I'm working on 2 solo shows that are actually should be going up in November. So.
Oh, nice. Where are they?
University of Michigan's museum. So
Oh,
I'll,
nice.
when everything is done, I'll send everybody an email. So anyway, yeah, that's what I'm working on next.
Kristin, yeah, thanks for showing us the work. It's very thought-provoking. As an activist, what other venues aside from, or what other modes do you get your work out there and your questions and point of view out to the public?
I write, and I also, I mean, outside of my art activism, outside of the things that I do in my work.
No, basically your work.
In my work, I mean, pretty much all of the work that you would see on my website has to do with some of the issues that I think are really important and that I think are critical issues just facing everybody today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I work with that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Is your legal work at all involved with social activism?
Yes, I do a lot of pro bono work. So I'm actually in the middle of, some pro bono work and advocating for some anti-war efforts now. So, and that actually is flipping over into my artistic practice as well. I'm working with a group of artists on a performance piece that's an anti-war effort and some other things right now. Actually, we're having a vigil tonight, the candlelight vigil at Millennium Park for peace. It's one of our anti-war activities. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Sure. And where are you finding your models, like for this particular project?
Well, this project was really challenging because I'd had this great idea about this, but I just, it was one of those things I started on the video that you haven't seen yet because it's not quite finished first. And in 2018, I started on that. And I just, because it's really personal and these issues affect so many women that I know in so many different ways, it was really hard to get started on it. So then when I finally did, COVID started. So my great plan to hire models kind of went by the wayside. So this project had to either be people that I knew really well who were comfortable letting me photograph them in person, which I didn't really want to do very much of, or I went back to some of the work I had done when I was doing work with fashion models. And so models, I would usually get either word of mouth or I've used Model Mayhem, Craigslist. I know some people who do modeling. I think most photographers do. So you just kind of make connections that way.
Well, I had another question, so I might as well ask. The video that you showed where you're showing all the different pieces of paper piling up, to me, they seem like what a mother would have to deal with their children, the vaccinations, the school reports, and then the volunteering, something else that you might do as an adult. Was I interpreting that correctly, or did you have something else in mind?
Yeah, I mean, that video was specifically addressed to working mothers, and not every, as I mentioned in my talk, even if you don't have children, as a woman, you're often asked to do a lot of things that men for them aren't asked to do. Or it's looked at really differently if men are asked and do those things. But yes, that was specifically directed at the kind of things that working mothers experience, that they're asked to do for their children, that, my experience of that was that if I showed up to a school event, that was no big deal. If my kid's dad showed up to a school event, Father of the Year. So he wasn't expected to go and do the kind of volunteering that I was. And I think that's true outside of school too, for their sports teams, if you belong to like a church or synagogue or whatever. So yes, that's what that was about. And I think for women who don't have children, lots of those things pile up in different ways, because then they're kind of expected to have, well, you don't have kids, you must have lots of extra time.
Mhm.
Kind of an unfair way of looking at things. So anyway, yeah, thanks for asking about that.
Kristin, that particular picture was to me the most powerful. It felt like once again I could feel the claustrophobia, because that's my life. No matter how well I manage those slips of paper, it's always there and I'm digging for them. I have to keep a memory bank of zillion things. And you portrayed it in one mounting video, like everything just kept additive. I was very impressed by that.
Thank you so much. I think so many people feel that way, even if you're not looking at it from the perspective of a parent. Just life tends to be that way now, especially people have access to us 24 hours a day through tech, and yeah. Thanks.
It's a male perspective versus female perspective, but I can't say all women look at it that way, but I feel that's the way I keep track of what else needs to be done. My memory list just goes on and on and on. And then I feel overwhelmed. I have to discard some. And yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very powerful.
Thank you. So welcome. Well, I really appreciate your all coming out and supporting this. This was a great show. I hope you guys will get a chance to see it, if only the virtual tour from my website, because there's so many other artists in this. There's 9 of us in this collective group, and all the work is beautiful, and it's all really interesting, and it all tackles really important issues. And there's a lot of work about women and femininity as well. So
I'll definitely go to the website.
thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristin.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoons, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Gonna maybe start in 2 minutes or so, give more folks time to join, and we will get right into our program. Thank you.
Switch to screen share. How do I do that? How do I switch to screen? Oh, God.
Hello, thank you all so much for joining us today for our virtual Center Sunday. We've had a really great program today. We had a Day of the Dead Ofrenda dedicated to Chicago with Mujeres, Mutantes, a wonderful talk with Kristin about her project and work as a part of the Unmuted show in the Bridge program. And now we have Cindy Lys, who will be discussing her project that's also a part of the Unmuted show. And we will be doing a demonstration and activity with her as well for this very poignant project that she has presented to us. And with that, I will hand it over to Cindy. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so glad you all could join today for this talk slash art making activity. My name is Cindy Lys, and I'm a visual artist and clinical social worker here in Chicago. Sierra was kind enough to invite me to join today based on the work that I have on exhibition in the Unmuted show, which was part of the Hyde Park Arts Center Bridge program that took place this spring. And it was, because of the pandemic, it was all done entirely virtually. And the incident with George Floyd's murder happened during the course of that program. And so I created a lot of new work based on that incident and, you know, my own reactions to it. So I am happy to share that in the Hyde Park Arts Center and then also with you all today. So thank you for having me. As I said, I am a visual artist. I normally work in textiles and indigo, which I have a lot of my indigo work up behind me. It is my usual kind of mode of creating and art making. So the work in the exhibition was a big departure as far as the form and style of it. I also do some mixed media work, have done some sculptures, collage, etc. It's a bit of a mixed bag as far as the other work that I create. And also due to the pandemic, I'm not as able to do textile dyeing with indigo because I need a lot of like studio space to do that. And facilities that I just don't have access to at home. So it's kind of forced me in other directions with my artwork. So for this project that I did, I'll show a video of it and some images of the work because it's all still at Hyde Park Art Center. So I don't have any pieces at home to show physically. But I was inspired to do the work. It kind of felt like an impulse, like I needed to do it. I needed to kind of get it out of my system because it was, I mean, it was visceral. Like I wasn't someone who could watch the entire video. And I hadn't been able to watch these videos for several years now. Like my tolerance for it had just ceased some time ago. So but I was so like hurt and furious about what occurred and what happened to this man. And I needed some outlet, some way to kind of exercise that pain that I was experiencing and also try to understand what happened, you know, if that's possible to understand what happened in terms of just how someone can do that in the first place. And that was a question that I really struggled with and was grappling with in the work that I was doing. And I was very much kind of stuck on this time frame of 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I'm not the only artist who has. I mean, Dave Chappelle kind of did a whole stand-up series by that title. And other artists have had very strong and beautiful work in response to the incident as well. But I was just really shocked by how much time that really was. And I started to do these timed mark making pieces to kind of force myself to really feel that passage of time that really occurred. Because 8 minutes is just so long. And so the materials I was using, you'll see in the videos and stuff that I'm using these paper bags. And I actually have a blank one here. Sorry, there's a lot of sun coming from my window. I tried to block it, but this is what one of the blank pieces looked like. And I used that material because because of quarantine, we couldn't use the reusable bags anymore. So I just had like this giant collection of Trader Joe's bags, and I don't normally do anything on paper in terms of my artwork. So I use the paper bags. They're, I mean, essentially like craft paper, and just kind of modified it. So it's also very like time-bound piece in that sense, because access to, you know, stores, materials was just really limited by the time I was doing this work in late May and early June. But I'd like to go ahead and show a video of the work, if you'll allow. And so I'll share the screen. And then the first video is what I posted to my Instagram account. Okay, give me a second. I'm not usually sharing my screen with Zoom. So it is.
Yeah, there should be a green button on the bottom of the taskbar for Zoom that says share screen with an arrow pointing upward.
I clicked on that, but it was asking me to go to like security and privacy or something.
Oh, I wonder if you have some specific settings that don't allow you to do that.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you go into your preferences.
Okay. Says Zoom will not be able to record the contents on my screen until it is quit. So should I quit and just come back into the call real quick?
Yeah, if you want to do that, we could just
Okay.
take a brief moment.
All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Let's see if it works. Okay. All right. And now former police officer, with the help of his fellow former police officers, nailed on the neck of a black man for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. As a social worker, I have worked in residential treatment facilities where holds are a necessary part of the de-escalation strategy.
Cindy, can you increase your sound on that so we could hear?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's it. Okay.
Safety and the safety of others. 8 minutes and 46 seconds is more than enough time to be able to think, to be able to assess, to check for injury, to strategize a safe release from the hole, to be informed by others, including the person.
It's still a bit hard to hear. I wonder, did you hit to share the audio also when you did it offer a prompt for that as well?
I'm not sure. How would I check that?
So when you hit share screen, there's an advanced sharing options, and it should say that you can share your audio along with that. I thought perhaps maybe that was why, or maybe the headphones, I'm not sure.
Okay. Should I do a new share? Or?
Yeah, try to do a new share. Stop sharing the screen now.
Okay.
And then when you hit share screen, there's
Should I share computer sound?
yes.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
All right, we're figuring it out.
No worries at all.
All right. Why does it keep asking for permissions?
Got a good computer that's keeping you safe and secure.
Yeah. All right, so I'll restart the video. Let me know if there's some audio issues as well. I now know that it was exactly 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And now former police officer, with the help from his fellow former police officers, knelt on the neck of a black man for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. As a social worker, I have worked in residential treatment facilities where holds are a necessary part of the de-escalation strategies. Having someone in a hold for just 1 minute can feel like forever. 5 seconds is a lifetime when you are trying to manage your own safety and the safety of others. 8 minutes and 46 seconds is more than enough time to be able to think, to be able to assess, to check for injury, to strategize a safe release from a hold, to be informed by others, including the person being held, about aspects of the situation that you aren't aware of, like if something is painful, or if they are struggling to breathe. 8 minutes and 46 seconds is far more than enough time to release him. As an artist, I'm trying to understand what 8 minutes and 46 seconds feel like. My hand and arm are cramped. My fingers don't want to hold the instruments anymore. Ancestors feel restless, and I can't stop. But I am tired and want it to stop. He did not stop until 8 minutes and 46 seconds had passed. I now. So that was one of the videos that I had created. This one I had actually like edited so that I could kind of post it online with the context and with a few of the thoughts that I was having as I was creating the work and what I wanted to convey in sharing the work. I'll show some images here of each piece. So when the project began, and I believe Sarah was, one of the witnesses to the beginning of this because she was in my artful journaling class in the springtime. But the first time I did something that led to the project that's now on display is in these journal pages. And I just was just curious about like, how much will I fill this page if I just scribble nonstop for 8 minutes? And as I kept going, as I was doing it, I was just kind of like stunned how much paper was just being covered in that amount of time. And I kind of wanted to keep doing it because I think it was several weeks of work that I was working on. And the more details I learned about what had happened, and, the more I learned about him and the incident and what happened subsequently, I just kind of felt compelled to continue processing this in this way. Because the piece I just couldn't get past and was so stuck on was just how someone could spend this much time, harming another person. I know it happens, but it doesn't mean that it's ever okay. And I needed to have this method of expressing that. So this was kind of the first iteration that happened. From there, I started to create several of these kind of paper bag images and just kind of named them after whatever the mark making was for that page. So this one is Silver Scribble. This one was of his name, George Floyd. And this is the one in the video that you just saw. This one is titled, I Can't Breathe, Officer. This one is Mama, Mama. This one is You're Going to Kill Me, or You're Gonna Kill Me. This one is Red Scribble. No justice, no peace. Everything hurts. Please, sir. And a White Scribble. These are all the bags together, all the images. And as I was doing the work, I also realized that the paper bag kind of has some meaning in the Black community because there used to be these kind of paper bag tests to kind of see if you were kind of light enough or too dark as a Black person in the United States. So there's some weight to the meaning of the material as well, I realized. But this was after I had started using it that I started to think about that significance. I also have additional videos of the bags being made. So these are just videos of different bags that I'm sharing here.
Can I ask a question, Cindy?
Sure.
That first of all, that paper bag thing is just like unbelievable.
Thank you.
God. But anyway, so sometimes you're using a thick magic marker, and other times a thinner one.
Well, they were all the same size marker for the ones on the bags. I was kind of using a version of these kind of thicker oil Sharpies and then these big black Sharpies. For the journal pages that I did, I used like a smaller silver gel pen just because it made sense for the size of the paper. And also with the length of time spent on each piece, it was just also easier to grip a bigger utensil for that long of a period of time as well.
Oil Sharpie.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's how you did that. Okay.
And for this piece, this was the last piece that I've done for the series. And I wanted there to be this like opening in the middle because I wanted there to be kind of room for hope or possibility or for something to come through this in some way. So that's why I didn't fill that center of it. And then this is the last video that I have to share. I also kind of appreciated the transparency of the white marker. It kind of felt a bit more ethereal and kind of transcendent in a way. And when he was calling out to his mother like this, I kind of, like it felt very spiritual in a sense, like something was kind of being conjured. And even as I was doing the work, I kind of, it felt kind of like a possessive type of experience as well. Like I kind of felt compelled to do so. It didn't always feel like a choice. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. Okay, that worked. So sorry, there's a lot of sun in my house right now. So I'll stay in this corner. But basically, I had a lot of different thoughts and kind of ways of understanding the work I was doing both during and afterwards. And this is also, I think, the first work I've done where there's been so much overlap between kind of my life as a visual artist and then my life as a clinical social worker. Because during this time, I'm also, with clients, like doing individual therapy with them. So this was also a topic of discussion frequently in my work at the time and since. And so, one of the things that was very visceral, and I named that in the video, in the first video where I was narrating, I don't know if you were able to hear all of it very clearly, but I did a lot of work in residential treatment, and there were, crisis intervention techniques that we were taught. And I've learned, two different ones in my time working in those types of places. And we do holds in that role. Like there have been many instances where I've had to restrain a child because they're being really unsafe with themselves or with other people. And it's something that is necessary in the work that I do in that role, in that setting. But it's also something that's always a last resort. And it's done very, very carefully. And we're trained on it and retrained on it. And even when they happen, we review what happened to make sure it was safe. We'll think about what we could have done differently. There's a lot of feedback in that process. And, comparing, my experience with like putting people in hold and restraining people, it just seems so wildly different from what I was witnessing and what I was reading about as far as George Floyd's murder was concerned. Like one of the things that's kind of drilled into our heads is like, don't ever restrict someone's airway. Like don't ever interfere with someone's ability to breathe. Like constantly check to make sure the person is okay. Like if anything hurts, we have to find out, we have to reposition if it's causing pain, or, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable. Like nobody, likes being restrained, but there are ways to do it safely, and as non-violently as possible. And doing it in ways where it's happening because it kind of has to happen to de-escalate the situation, not because we're on a power trip of some kind. And so it also made me think about other aspects of social work, particularly in terms of like how we diagnose folks. Like there's a group of like diagnostic codes that we use. Like for example, like PTSD is a diagnosis that we use, depression is a diagnosis, et cetera. Anxiety, multiple types of anxiety are a diagnosis. But we also have these different set of codes that are just there to, let a clinician know or let a provider know that there have been these other things in a person's life that they've experienced that affect whatever that diagnosis is. So let's say somebody is diagnosed with like depression. We could also say that, they have a child history of physical abuse of some kind, that sort of thing. The abuse itself is not the diagnosis, but it has happened and it affects how their mental health presents now. One of those codes that we have in the book is target of perceived adverse discrimination or persecution. And that kind of kept sticking out to me as I kept thinking about this situation, because usually these codes that we have, like there's one for, let's say, the survivor of whatever that trauma was, and there's usually a code for whoever perpetrated as well, if we're treating someone who might have been the perpetrator of abuse. But with this particular code, there's no code for the person perpetrating the discrimination or persecution. There's only a code for the person experiencing it. And there's also this caveat of like perceived persecution as well. So it may not even have been real. And that also just kind of felt like a double standard in the work, like why wouldn't there be a code, for that behavior? Why wouldn't that be kind of clinically relevant to know that someone is a perpetrator to that extent of abuse and discrimination? And in the work too, it makes you think of a different kind of physicality with the work. It's very much like a chosen labor that I was undertaking, making these pieces. When I do indigo dyeing, like there's a lot of labor involved in that. Like we're creating vats, Mary can probably speak to it. She's on the call. She's my art mentor, and taught me a lot about indigo vat dyeing. And we were really tired and exhausted by the end of the day, but that's just how you make the work. That's an unavoidable part of the process that we go through. But with this, if I really wanted to just cover a page, there are easier ways to just cover a page. Like I can just, get a huge brush and just paint over it and be done with it. But there was a labor to this that I was choosing and kind of wanted to undergo, that was important. And I wanted to be able to experience that, and to feel the amount of time that was going by. Especially as I was thinking about these holds that I used to do in residential treatments, because we would kind of time how long they were happening. Like if they had gone on for a certain amount of time, we'd have to release the hold just for safety, because somebody physically can't be in that position for too long. And so, and I also thought a lot about how the action of kneeling had been weaponized in that way. Like usually it's a sign of humility or contrition. And in this instance, it had become an act of violence against another person. And also that, thinking about that physical position, it's uncomfortable to kneel, it's uncomfortable to have somebody in a hold or to restrain them. Like our bodies hurt afterwards just as much as whoever has been in a hold, usually, because we're putting effort, we're, contorting ourselves into strange positions in order to hold another person in a strange position. even my family is from Haiti. I'm Haitian American, and even one of the punishments that we use for children is called à genoux, which is just to be on your knees. And it's a position, I mean, it's kind of a benign act, but you know, if you stay on your knees long enough without being able to kneel or lean on anything, it will hurt. You know, your body will start to become sore after a while. So, you know, I also just didn't understand how someone could take that position in such a context of violence for so long and not begin to feel it at some point, and really like start to get these sensations of wanting to release themselves from this or adjust or, you know, move in some way. Like it was just hard for me to imagine just staying like that on top of someone for so long too. So I think that, I mean, I imagine I could come up with more to kind of say or more thoughts to share about some of my thoughts going into this. But I also wanted to make sure we had time to do the timed activity. So my intention for today was to have everyone kind of participate in a timed mark making activity that will last 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And so you can grab any piece of paper, could be journal paper, loose leaf paper. You know, if you have a paper bag to use, feel free to use that. And any sort of like mark making instrument that will just give you like a continuous flow. So pens are good, markers are good, gel pens are great. Colored pencils and pencils may not be so great because that nub is going to wear down pretty quickly. So anything that might last for the amount of time. I also want to be mindful if anyone has any like physical restraints or if this is something that may actually cause like pain after a while, like you're not obligated to actually finish the time. But it will be uncomfortable. So I do encourage that you push through the discomfort, but I don't want anyone to actually like hurt themselves in the process of this. So if, I can't see everyone, but I'll assume folks have a pen and paper nearby.
Do you think cardboard would be harder to use?
I don't think so. Cardboard will absorb whatever ink you have.
But I'm going to see what happens.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just push as long as you can. You know, there's no,
I'm glad you said that about thick pens. You're right, because in physical therapy, they give you, I can't see the camera, these to put on over pens to make them thicker for your hand.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I'll try.
Yeah. Whatever is going to help. Myself, I couldn't do more than like 2 bags a day, just because of the strain it was putting on my hand and my shoulder, my arm during the process. So push as far as you can into it. During the time activity, I am going to kind of read some questions, some statements, and these are just things to think about as you're doing it. They're not meant to be responded to during that timed period. I think they're just prompts to kind of help you to think about, like, you know, to be in your body, you know, pay attention to what your body is experiencing. And then also, I found the process of doing them to be very emotional too. Like there were definitely several times where I, you know, was crying as I was doing this. A lot came up for me in the process of doing this work. So I do have some questions to kind of promote, or just to kind of bring to the surface some of the emotional content, some things to wonder about specific to the incident with George Floyd as we do this. Feel free to make any kind of mark that you want to. It could be scribbles, it could be words, you know, whatever makes sense for you, whatever you can just continuously do for the duration of the time period. And I'll kind of periodically call out like how many minutes have passed. You know, if we're down to a minute or 30 seconds left, I'll also say that before the timer goes off. Because I know myself, when I was doing it, I was definitely kind of checking the clock because I kept feeling like, okay, this has to have been 8 minutes by now. Like I feel like I've been doing this forever. And it wasn't. So I'll kind of call out the time as we go along. So if everyone is ready, I will have a timer set on my laptop that I think will make a noise when it's done. If it doesn't make a noise, I will make a noise. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the clock right now. And it's going. All right. I think I'll stand for this part so I'm out of the sun. Okay, there we go. It doesn't matter so much what marks you're making, just that you're making them. We're just over a minute in. I want you to kind of notice your body as you're making the marks. How does your hand feel? How hard are you gripping your utensil with your hands? Are you breathing? And is your breath steady? How does your arm feel? What can you hear? Are you noticing the scratch of your utensil traveling across your page? Can you feel the firmness of your table or whatever you're writing on? How are you noticing the passage of the time as you're doing this? How much of your page is now covered in your marks? There are 6 minutes left. 8 minutes and 46 seconds is a lot of time. How many thoughts have already gone through your mind? How much thinking has already occurred for you in this time? What are you wondering about as you make your marks? Five more minutes. Have you ever imagined what you might have done if you were there? What if you were in the crowd? Of all of them, only a few chose to make the recording we all saw. What if you were the one deciding to call the police about the counterfeit money in the first place? What might your decision have been? Four more minutes. What if you were one of the officers? Would you have succumbed to the pressure of the blue wall? What if it was you struggling to breathe, calling on an ancestor? Notice whatever is coming up for you at this time as you continue to push through the page with your utensil. We're just under 3 minutes now. Notice your body. If anything feels sore or tight. How do the muscles and tendons feel in your hand? Just under 2 minutes. How is your breath? Is it steady? How much of your page is covered now? With just over a minute to go. "50 more seconds. If you made it this far, you can push through to the end. If you've already stopped, just take a few deep breaths. "20 more seconds. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Put your pencils down or whatever you've been using. Pens, markers, etc. Okay. Sun's out of my face again. So with that activity, I really wanted to open it up at this point to any reactions folks were having. If you'd like to share what you ended up creating, please do so. It's not required, you're not obligated to. That's entirely voluntary. But like to kind of open it up for discussion, for folks to kind of share what they're thinking and maybe feeling right now.
I don't know how many people are here. I'll share mine. With 1 minute left, my pen broke.
Mm.
The nib, this part came off.
Mm.
And I got a lot of holes in my paper. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been brown. Just going through it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
from anger, you know, and then it felt so upsetting
Mm-hmm.
that I cheated a little bit and did, you know, your last piece you did, you put a center that was open for hope. So I picked up the silver pen. These aren't great pens to do this with. And I have this old white pen that has not very much in it, and put some of that in there because it was just, sorry, so dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I went through a very similar process doing this work. I was kind of stunned how much it was bringing up for me, which is why I wanted to allow some time for folks to kind of share, you know, their experience with it.
Yeah. So it doesn't look really good at all, but
that's okay. That's not the point. That's not the point.
No, I know. And just, there was anger.
Mm-hmm.
At first I was going like just regular patterns, like, oh, this is like a heartbeat type pattern that you get on an EKG or something.
Yeah.
So let me try to do some of that. And then, oh, look, it's changing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking, oh, this is bad. You know, and I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
So I don't, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, not this is bad, but just this feels bad, which of course it does, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's challenging. Like it doesn't feel good, you know. Like it's very challenging.
I wasn't breathing very well either. I was, when you
Mm-hmm.
said, see about your breathing, it was, oh,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's just pens are dropping all over the floor now, so I don't.
That's all right. That is all right. Yeah. Sierra, did you want to share a bit about, I know she commented in the chat.
Yeah, I was saying I really found that as I was so focused on writing, I was writing the word love just over and over again. And I felt it in my wrist, but when my attention went to the pain in my wrist after a while, like the thumb area, I realized that I had been holding my breath for a portion of it unconsciously. And it just the parallels between me holding my breath during this process and George Floyd and the breath being such an important aspect of that really stuck out to me as well too.
Yeah.
And I've started to forget how to spell the word as well, like the process of just rewriting it over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Too.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, no, the connection. Yeah, I wanted to make sure folks were paying attention to their breath, because I think when there's like tension or we feel anxiety, like our breath is like the first thing that starts becoming irregular. And, you know, it was also such a focus of the event too, like whether or not he could breathe, you know, and whether or not he was allowed to breathe. And, you know, there's a lot of overlap there. You know, it suddenly feels like a privileged thing to be able to breathe when that shouldn't be a privilege. It's just what is. It's just what happens automatically.
Yeah, definitely.
What great choice. I don't know who it is who was speaking just now, but to choose the word love, to choose a positive word, what a great choice.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I didn't want to, you know, talk about pain with pain. So trying to put something positive or something warm out there in response to it as well. What did I want to exude? What does the world need right now? Just a lot of different things. Thinking about that song by Dan Warwick, And yeah, plus it's something I can hold on to after
Yeah.
without the weight.
Absolutely. I really like using the word love. I might do that as like a closing exercise for myself as well. Yeah. That's a good way to end. Yeah. Did anyone else want to share or comment? Not required, but just want to put the invitation out.
Do you want to share your love piece or not? If you don't want to, it's perfectly fine.
Sure, I can. Hold on one second. I had this box top in my recycling, so it's written all over here.
Oh, I love that.
Let me see. Oh, could you?
No pun intended.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make her image bigger. I don't know if I can though, so I could read it more. Oh wow! Look, I can see it. I can read it. I can read the word. Oh, that's nice.
That's great.
Oh, I can read it.
I want to keep going over it more because I feel like when I was working on it, I was a bit too contrived. And what I really liked about yours was as it filled in more, the way that the words layer on top of each other. I'm really into text-based work as well too. So
very cool.
Interesting. But for the purpose of the process of the project, that 8 minutes and whatnot. Yeah. So
yeah, it's the 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what? Mine was. It took me a few minutes to say, wait, what's the paper I'm going to use? Wait, what's the pen? So I was 8 minutes, 46 seconds, just saying, wait, maybe I should use a light paper. And, but it was like, no, don't do any of that. And I wish that the primary emotion that was coming out wasn't anger, but it was. So that's why it literally became this.
Yeah.
See my hand, but so not a surprise that the pen broke,
Yeah. I think it's really powerful that it did too, in a way, like it almost feels like symbolic, like something should have like broken that cycle, or that process too.
Also, when you said kneeling is uncomfortable, and it is, and having been raised Catholic, I know all about that shit.
Yeah.
But the cop, there was a cushion under his knee. That's all I could think. And it's just, oh my God, that's so horrible to think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I wish I didn't live alone. But anyway, this is very emotional. It's fine, but it's deep into it,
Yeah. Well, me being a social worker, all emotional expression is okay and should happen.
Yeah. And there could be movement, like your last thing that you did, and love and peace. There could be good words.
Yeah.
It could be good words.
Yeah. Maybe it would be a good meditation to do a timed piece with something positive, or that's joyful, or that feels more life-giving.
Yeah. It's just that's powerful. I thought it would be, so that's surprised. Anyway. Oh, I probably just got ink on my face too. Oh well, so who cares?
Yeah, it's okay. Elizabeth, Mary, did either of you want to comment or say anything?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was making all kind of comments as I was doing this. And of course, I did words. I did indigo blues with a purple marker. So as I was doing this, I wondered, why did I choose purple but I didn't have time to look for a blue marker. But what I found myself doing was smelling the content of the marker, which had a very terrible smell, pungent. And then after a while, I didn't smell anything at all. But But one of the things that I did notice was that I wanted it to end.
Yeah.
Because my arm was getting tired, my hand was getting tired, my neck was getting tired, which I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Because what I did did mine in my textbook, so I had it lying on my lap.
Okay.
In my,
Oh,
sketchbook.
yeah, I
So,
could see that. Like that would create some tension in the neck for
yeah, that
sure.
created some tension too. But
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting because I wanted it to end, but I didn't want to stop.
Mm.
I wanted to go through the whole process, and I just figured, I said, that's a very long time.
It
A very,
is.
very long, painful, much more pain than I experienced with this project. And I just couldn't imagine someone being so hurtful, to actually want to do this to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I had been there, I would definitely have videotaped everything.
Mm.
But I would also have wanted to react. I don't know how, but I wanted to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Although the policeman kept pushing you back, pushing the people back and wouldn't let them come close, I had a feeling of rescue. How you really want to rescue someone, but not knowing how.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see that video and every time I see images of that, it still brings back the same as when I saw the video on TV. I just couldn't imagine someone doing this on national television.
Yeah.
I just could not imagine. Even though it didn't go viral right away, but someone was videotaping it and he never told them to stop.
Mm-hmm.
It was like he was enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in front of so many witnesses too, like even if he didn't know he was being recorded, like how do you do that in front of so many people for such a long time and not at some point pause to just reevaluate the situation? What did you say?
What were you saying? I couldn't unmute myself to respond. You said you couldn't believe that he videotaped, the person who videotaped the whole thing, videotaped it the whole time and didn't respond or something. Is that what you said?
Who, me?
No.
Cindy.
Mary.
Okay, I'm Mary.
Oh, hi, Mary. Sorry, I'm not.
Hi there. Well, yes, I couldn't imagine someone videotaping this and no one said stop. Or there was no reaction. And it seemed like there was enough people there to do something, but then there were policemen with guns. So you had a second thought about what should I do with this information. But I really praise the person who did videotape it and let it go viral, because that was the only evidence that this actually took place.
I believe it was a teenage girl.
I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And someone told, I read some time ago that she was being threatened. People were threatening her life and everything. But because this happened in that particular state and city, it just made me think about that particular action was normal. It seemed like this was done all the time.
Yeah.
Which was so hurtful.
It's so profound. Don't you think, weren't there people in the crowd who said stop? Don't you think there were?
I think there were. I think there were people who were saying like, stop, he can't breathe, like there was feedback coming from all sides asking him to, asking them, because he wasn't alone in doing this. There was 4 of them all together, and they were hearing from everyone in that crowd to stop, that he couldn't breathe, that he had stopped moving, all of that.
But no one is going to make a break for it because they would get shot.
Yeah.
It's a great project, Cindy.
Thank you.
Really great and profound. I mean, I'm glad I had the opportunity to come to the art center and actually see it in person,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, which
definitely.
had such an impact.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I'm really happy I had this opportunity to do this talk and activity associated with it. I think if we weren't in the time of COVID, like I would have loved to have done like event in person and just have like this collective experience
Right,
of
right.
creating, you know, these pieces on paper that are all timed, and you know, maybe create like a collective project in that sense, you know. But you know, we have to be creative in these times. And, you know, had I had access to kind of, you know, my normal means of art making, I don't know that I would have created this in the first place, because it was really like, what do I have in my home right now, as opposed to a studio?
Absolutely.
And this is what was here. And this is what I ended up making with that. So, you know, it's, you know, you have to have some ingenuity and adaptability in order to keep making the work.
And also the fact that you use paper bags and recycle them.
Yes, yes. I felt bad about collecting so many and not, you know, I didn't want to just throw them away. So I found a purpose for them.
That's so
Recycled into healing.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Man.
Mm.
This was really, this was really, really meaningful to me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Really appreciate it. It's absolutely unique. I can't, you know, I wish more people had been able to come to experience.
I do too. I wish there were more.
Yeah. Well, I think this is being recorded. So I believe that there'll be a recording available at some point. So more people will be able to view it.
Yeah.
I just won't know what the reactions are live. So, but I appreciate you all being here and participating and being open to this process, because it is challenging and emotional.
Very.
And I think also very enlightening at the same time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everyone that's here.
Yes, and thank you, Cindy, so much for doing this for our Virtual Center Sundays program. I think it was a great way to close it out and also do it so close to the election where
yes,
will happen.
Oh my God.
Yes.
You had to bring that up.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was going to sneak in a little PSA about voting. If you haven't done it yet, get it done as soon as possible.
Yes.
You know, but it's happening in 2 days.
Yes, it is.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you all. Please carry warm energy and love going into this next week as well. Please check out more of Cindy's work. I love the indigo work behind you as well, and I would love
Thank you.
Oh, I love seeing that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. Everyone have a great rest of your Sunday. Be thoughtful, be well, and be healthy. And thank
You too, Jen.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
So much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Cindy. You're very soothing. You have a soothing voice.
Yes, she
did. Thank you. Thank you.
Man.
I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you
Have
so
a wonderful rest of your weekend, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye now.
You're the same.
Bye.